This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Apache Glass and Mirror. Apache Glass and Mirror has been doing business in Arizona since 1974. They specialize in residential glass. So if you've got a single pane window that breaks, they can come out and fix that for you. If you have a double pane window that breaks, there's no need to replace the full window. Apache Glass can just come out, pop the glass out, put a new double pane window in, and you'll be on your way. They do windows, sliding glass doors, they do showers, and they do mirrors. But they also do miscellaneous residential glass. Like if you've got a picture frame that breaks, you can bring the frame into the shop, and they'll cut a new piece of glass for you right there. They get everything from clocks to frames, like I said, to just different types of furniture that have mirrors in them and things like that. So any type of mirror or glass for your home. If you need a tabletop for a nice table you have, say you got a nice wood table, you don't want to risk any kids or grandkids putting glasses on it. Kids never use coasters, so just put a nice thin sheet of glass over it, and your table will be good to go. The showers they do a couple different types. You can do the real big, nice single pane sheet of glass that just sits there, or you can put one of those framed glass doors in your shower. They do both. They do sunscreens as well. If you're living in Arizona, and a lot of you are, some of you aren't, but at this point, most of you are still in Arizona. If you've got a house that faces south, you know that any time other than the wintertime, it's going to get hit by that sun, and it does get a bit brutal. So if you haven't considered putting on shade screens, then that does help a lot. Some of you have tried shade screens, and it can still be based on where your house is facing and the type of house it is. If it doesn't have any overhangs or porches or anything like that, it can still get those windows super hot. If that's the case, still call Apache Glass. There's a lot of different options that can go on there. They can order new glass for your windows that has low E and RLE coatings on it that kind of block out the UV rays. So there's still options. Don't give up hope if sunscreens didn't help you much. At Apache Glass, they can dive into it and pull out the big guns and take care of you. They're online at apacheglass.com. They're on Facebook and Instagram at apacheglassandmirror.com. Give them a call, 480-986-5505. And of course, they can come out and fix the glass in your windows. Also, if you have windows that don't open and close right, or if you have windows that aren't locking, anything that's wrong with them, Apache Glass can help you out with that. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Bright Island Outreach. You can find them online at brightislandoutreach.org. Bright Island Outreach is a nonprofit that goes into the Dominican Republic multiple times a year to provide pro bono dental work for the impoverished people there. Uh, they follow up with these people. They don't just hook them up and then send them on their way for one time. They keep providing continuous dental care. They are networked in with the local dental colleges, so it's not just these white knights coming into the Dominican Republic. They actually use some locals down there and kind of empower the people to help themselves down there as well. Um, they do education, they do hygiene, extractions, fillings, dentures, and root canals. So there is a wide spectrum of the services that they provide these people. Not only that, but they see anywhere between 100 to 200 patients a day, depending on what's going on and what type of procedures they're doing. Um, they use mobile dental kits, so they don't have to. These people who don't have the means to travel, so a lot of times they're not living in the larger cities. They actually take the dental kits to them, and they can provide the service right in the communities that they need it. 100% of the money donated to Bright Island Outreach goes to the cause. The owners and the people who run this are doing this because it rewards them inside. They don't. It doesn't reward them monetarily. In fact, it costs them all money. They do this out of the goodness of their heart. If you are considering donating to a charity this year, I would suggest donating to Bright Island Outreach. you will know that your money is going to the cause that it says it's going, and it is a good cause. Hello, planet Earth. Just a little housekeeping before I dive into the meat and potatoes of this podcast. This conversation that I was able to have with Steve Humble was awesome. This is why I get into podcasting. Here I have somebody who is a pioneer in their field. Um, he doesn't just dominate the secret passageway market and hidden door and secret room market. Um, Really, he created the market. Um, he's a very very busy individual. His job, he has got a lot of important clients, a lot of you'll see as we get into it a little bit more, but a lot of important people that hit him up, people that don't have time to waste and don't have time for their deadlines for hidden door installations to be missed. Despite all that, Steve was able to give me a good hour of his time. I went over that hour and he was gracious about it. Very, very cool individual. Very smart man. Sometimes when I'm doing these interviews, or if I'm setting them up with people, feel like I am Ted Theodore Logan talking to Neil deGrasse Tyson. I feel like the village idiot in the room talking to a genius, and that was probably the case here with Steve. He was very gracious through it all, despite some of my dumb and silly questions. But we had a great conversation. There were probably 5 to 10 more rabbit holes we could have jumped down if we'd had the time. In the future, I would love to have him on as a guest to kind of tackle a few more of those topics. But like I said, he was very gracious with his time. He showed me his showroom, gave me a full tour, was very, very cool the entire time. So I'm grateful for that. Grateful for the time he gave me. Grateful for the conversation we had because this is good stuff. I've totally had a fun time editing this content, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to it as much as I did creating this. So here we go. Steve Humble. Hello, planet Earth. I am sitting here today with Steve Humble. Is a engineer. In fact, I'm going to let him talk to you about a little bit more about what he does.
Yeah, well, I am a mechanical engineer by education, and after I graduated engineering school, I worked as an engineer for just about 1 year before starting my own business, specializing in making secret passageway doors for luxury homes all over the world.
Now, I remember we ran into each other at the gym. This probably would have been about 10 years ago, and I asked you what you were doing, and you told me this, and kind of blew me away.
Yeah. I at parties, I get myself into a long conversation.
Sometimes I imagine you would.
So sometimes to avoid that, I just say I'm an engineer. It's boring, and people don't ask a lot more questions after that. But if I'm in a mood to talk, I'll tell people that I make secret doors for people, and then there's usually about 100 questions that follow.
Okay, the first thing I thought of when you told me this was the Michael Keaton Batman movies. When he plays the piano and the Batcave opens up, and when he reaches in and grabs the castle and the fish tank, and the Batcave opens up.
So thank goodness for the movies, right? Because that's how I got the idea, really, to do this, and that's how so many of my customers got the idea. They saw a movie, they happened to be building a house, they thought, oh wow, that'd be a fun thing. I wonder if you can do that in a house, and then invariably the internet points them to me. And so yeah, I have and it's funny too. Before I got into this business, I did not realize how many movies have secret doors in them. But now that I do this, of course, I notice every one, and it's like half of all movies.
That's awesome. Have you? I do comedy from time to time. I'm not super serious about it. It's more of a hobby. But I do stand up. There's a stand up comedian called John Mulaney. And he has a bit about a secret door. It's called The One Thing You Can't Replace. So
I'll have to check that out.
When you have time, watch it on YouTube. It's pretty hilarious.
Okay, I will.
So tell me about the first door you ever built.
Okay, so I got this idea, right? So probably should back up
Yeah,
a little
tell
bit
me
before that
exactly.
to the sort of the genesis of this. So first of all, I'm a mechanical engineer. I always loved secret doors, but never thought that I would do anything related to them professionally. So I graduated school, went to work for a company doing medical devices, and I was still single at the time, and so I rented this big, almost like a frat house with a bunch of friends of mine, and we had rooms that we weren't using, and I thought, oh, it would be fun to make a secret door there, and it just so happened that at the time I was doing robotic stuff at work. I was designing these robots that would push buttons on lasers. That
Cool.
would. Anyway, I thought.
So,
man,
ladies and gentlemen, for the record, Steve Humble does have a background in AI. Now, continue.
Yeah, so I just thought it'd be fun to do a secret door for this house, not for any security need, just it's something fun to do. But I didn't even own the house; I was renting the house, and at the same time, at work, I had a pretty good job, but I wasn't really wired to work in a cubicle and make money for somebody else. I found myself sort of fantasizing about selling everything and joining the Peace Corps, or doing something adventurous with
Something
my life.
not in a cubicle.
Yeah, right. And so I thought maybe there are other people that actually have money and have that own their own house, and they've seen the same movies that I've seen, and they would like to have a secret door. And so that's why I thought, well, maybe there's something to this. And I did some research on the internet and was just stunned to find that there was nowhere, anywhere in the world could you have the Indiana Jones rotating fireplace. Nobody would even touch it for you.
That's such an iconic
right.
scene right there too.
And you could maybe find a woodworker that would put a bookcase on a set of hinges, but it wouldn't be cool. It wouldn't have it wouldn't be the Batman Shakespeare bust, nothing
Right.
motorized. And I did some research into it and found that what was out there was usually pretty lackluster in terms of its quality as well, because engineering is really a critical aspect of making a machine like this move. So I started taking builders out to lunch and architects, calling them up and seeing if they would make a couple minutes for me to pitch an idea to them to get their feedback, so that I could see if it was a good enough idea for me to quit my safe engineering job. And I got really, really positive feedback. In fact, way too positive. Like, everybody was so encouraging to me, and I thought it was going to be super easy, but it was actually a really hard road. But I was highly encouraged in the beginning. So eventually I quit my job, broke up with my girlfriend. I was living in Utah at the time, but my folks lived in Arizona, so I moved in with my folks and told them, hey, I want to start this crazy business. I think my folks thought I was somewhat crazy as well to quit such a safe job. So now to your question, which is the first one I ever made. So a buddy of mine, who by the way, Jake Clarkson.
I do know Jake.
He was building a house at just that moment, and I called him up and I asked him if he would let me put a secret door in his new house. And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever, okay. So
Yes.
I went and I put one in. I actually put two in. I put one bookcase where we hid a couple secret buttons around where you push the buttons and the bookcase would open up. And then I also built one where he had a wall niche, like where you would put a statue or a vase full of flowers or something. And we made it so that you twist a vase, and then the wall niche, it goes into the wall and then up towards the attic, and then a gun safe would come out to where the wall niche had been.
That is so cool.
So Jake allowed me to do that. I put those two secret doors in that house, and then as soon as that was done, I called the newspaper. And I said, hey, I started this business. It's kind of fun. Maybe you might want to feature it. And the newspaper was all about it. They sent a photographer out, and they put me on the front page of the business section.
Awesome.
So then, I just sort of had to set up a website and I had to get a contractor's license, which was in and of itself a challenge because to get a contractor's license, you have to have experience doing the thing that you want to do. In fact, they specify you have to have like so many years as a journeyman and so many years as a foreman and whatnot. And I didn't have any experience making secret doors at all or any kind of doors. But I was an engineer, and at that point, even though I had only really been working as an engineer for 1 year, I had a pretty impressive resume because I had a couple of really cool internships. I had worked at Boeing making airplanes, and I had worked at Honeywell making jet engines, and a couple other things. So
just some small mom and pop shops.
Yeah, right. So anyway, I had to write these letters to the registrar of contractors explaining that I do not have any years of experience as a journeyman, but I'm really, really smart, and I used to make jet engines, and so you can trust me to make
I can do this.
Yeah. And so it took a little bit of doing and a little bit of back and forth, but eventually...
I've worked with the ROC before,
Yeah.
so I understand.
So eventually they granted me a license. They made a new kind of license that's secret doors, and I'm the only person ever to have it, as far as I know.
That's awesome.
They gave me that license, and I got the website going, and we were off to the races.
Wow. How many, on average, how many doors do you build a year?
I'm gonna say probably about. Well, historically, it's been like maybe 60 or 70
A year.
But this year we're really expanding fast because I've been doing this now for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the majority of that time, the vast majority of the time actually, everything that we did was so highly customized and so high quality that really only the really high end could afford it.
Right.
You had to be much richer than I am to be able to purchase it. And then after having to turn down so many like middle class people that also wanted a secret door, we just started a division this year that specializes in off the shelf secret
Nice.
doors. So these are not highly customized, and they're already designed, and by designing them once and then building them over and over again, we can really get the cost way down. And so whereas our starting price only a year ago was $10,000. Now we've got secret doors for only $1,500.
Nice. So it sounds like you've taken a complete custom job and almost built a smaller kit out of it that you can sell for a lot less expensive.
Yeah, well, so I don't actually like to use the word kit because...
My bad.
No, it's fine. Because a kit sort of assumes that you have a lot of work to do on your end as the consumer. Right. And that's not the case. These are still totally pre-hung, pre-assembled. They've actually already even been installed into a test jig.
Okay.
And they come to you already done. So all you have to do is slide them into the opening and screw them to the studs. It's like
to go.
It's like a 15-minute installation, literally.
Okay, so it's almost like a pre-assembled door.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, the same way, people are always concerned about the installation, especially because the majority of the secret doors we sell get shipped out all around the world. But the secret doors that we make install just the same way as any other pre-hung door would be. So like if you go down to the Home Depot or whatever and you buy a door, it usually comes pre-hung, and it wasn't built at the Home Depot. It was built in some factory in another state probably.
Right.
And they shipped it in a truck, and then you bring it to your house and you slide it into the opening and you install it, and it's not that tough.
Yeah.
And our doors are designed to be that same way.
So it sounds like if you have any level of handiness to you at all, you can get this done without.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you don't even have to be really very handy. All the doors come with installation instructions. They're actually easier to install than a regular pre-hung door because a normal pre-hung door, after you get the door installed, you have to then install the trim. And our doors, the trim is part of the camouflage, so it's actually included. So it's all pre-done. You literally, I mean, it could not be easier. You do have to make sure that your opening is the correct size ahead of time, and that sometimes might take a little bit of handyman skills. And then, you know, just like any door, you have to make sure that it's square inside the opening. So sometimes you have to shim it or whatever.
Right.
And you have to have a level and a screwdriver and 15 minutes, and that's it.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. So that is for the standard secret doors that we sell, which are basically ones that look like either bookcases or full-length mirrors. Of course, there's still the custom side of the business that we do, and they can be much, much more elaborate and have very difficult installations. In fact, we fly all over the place installing these sometimes when they have more difficult installations, because they're not always we do such a wide range of secret doors. You know, some look like bookcases, some look like moving staircases, some look like we're building one right now that's a drawbridge for somebody. I've never built a secret drawbridge before.
That is awesome.
So that one, you know, I might have to fly out and help out with the installation.
That is so cool. Let me ask you, what's your favorite door that you put in somewhere?
Well, I love the ones that are bigger. I
Imagine.
love the ones that, even though they are exponentially more difficult, I love the ones that are bigger because the illusion is so much more intense. When you see a big object move, it's like,
Yeah.
wow. So like one of the favorite ones that I did, we actually built for the International Builders Show. So it wasn't even
Cool.
for a customer. We actually built it up as part of our booth there,
Cool.
and we took it there. And it was this great big fireplace, like something you might expect to see in a castle or something.
Yeah.
And then we made it so that you move some chess pieces to a certain spot on a chessboard, and then this
So
fireplace
cool.
opens up. And it was so fun. Maybe
Okay, wait, let me stop you there, real quick. So this is a fully functioning chessboard.
Yes,
But
yes.
if you arrange these certain pieces at certain spots on the board, the door opens.
That's right.
That is so cool. Okay, my first thought is if two people are playing chess and they have no idea, and they just happen to put the chess pieces down in that spot, they're going to get the surprise of their
Yeah.
life.
We did think of that, though. We made it so that one of the pieces is a bishop, and so the bishop would only be on white, but in order to activate the secret door, the bishop has to be on black.
Clever.
So that
Clever.
it cannot happen in normal play.
All right. I would have loved to have seen that happen. I've been watching that chess match like,
Yeah.
almost,
right.
yes! You know, like,
Yeah. So anyway, that was a fun one to make because I got to design it myself, so I didn't have to like bend to the client's wishes. I made it the way that I would make it, and so I made it really, really big and heavy looking, and it actually was really heavy. And then the other really fun thing about it was that, unlike most of my projects, I got to show it to people because most of the time I don't get to show my work to anybody.
yeah, I
except for the
imagine
client.
if you want a secret door, the last thing you want is everybody to, you know, have a tour of your secret door and how it
right.
works.
So clients are, of course, very shy about showing it to anybody, but this one I got to show it to thousands of people in the span of a short time. So it was fun how, you know, at any time you go to a trade show, everybody's trying to attract people to their booth, right? So they're doing giveaways and, you know, and food, whatever. And then we had this booth that was actually a much smaller, less expensive booth than many of the other businesses that were around us. And we didn't have any giveaways, but yet our booth was actually mobbed. Like we
I imagine.
literally had to ask people to leave our booth because there was not room for other people to come see. Like there was a line to see our booth. And every person that showed up, it was like, oh, what's this? And then you show the secret door moves, and then almost invariably, expletives. They're just like, what the? What?
That would have been me.
Yeah, right. And then they almost invariably they pull out their phone and call their person that is also somewhere else on the exposition floor and say, hey, you have to come over to booth number, you know, whatever.
That's awesome.
This is incredible. And so, yeah, people would stay and play with the secret doors over and over, and I just got to sort of stand off to the side and watch the delighted reactions from people.
Yeah, I think if I were in your situation, I would have been a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Just, is this really happening? Are this many people interested in my product? This is so awesome. It must have been a very fulfilling experience
It
to
was.
be there.
Yeah, it's always fun whenever I get to show that. In fact, my favorite part of the job actually is when the client gets to see it for the first time.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the clients, they feel like, you know, they took a risk with us, which they did, and they don't really know how good it's going to be. And they don't always know how seriously I take my job. And so when they see it for the first time, they're always just like blown away.
Yeah.
Like, this is so much better than I thought it was going to be. And so that is like, almost like a drug for me to witness that.
I imagine. When you told me that you were building secret rooms, and I was like, you mean like hidden rooms? And you're like, as long as the entrances are secret, that's what I build. And I remember thinking, Steve is a very smart individual. I bet these rooms are sick, and I have yet to see one in real life, but I imagine they are. So you said your prefab doors now are going for about $1,500.
Starting price $1,500. They range between $1,500 and $3,000.
Okay.
Much.
And for your custom doors,
starting price is closer to $10,000, maybe like $9,000 if you sort of, depending on how you get it. But starting price around there, and then really sky's the limit. I mean, I just shipped one that is the most expensive one that I've done to date for a single door, and it was $190,000.
Wow. That must have been so much fun to work on that door.
That particular door, it had its fun moments, but it was actually really, really stressful. There's a reason that it cost $190,000.
I got you.
It was a very complex piece of equipment, and a lot of moving parts, and a very important client, and just ton of complication of that project. But yes, you're right though. When it's all done and I get to sit back and breathe and look at it, it's very fulfilling.
You say this has a lot of stress, but you don't have any gray or white hair these days. You're looking better than a lot of guys our age.
I did start young.
You got to have a lot of fun doing this too.
It is a lot of fun, but certainly it is a lot of stress. There's no question. Like a lot of people ask me about being an entrepreneur and starting my own business, and I occasionally am asked to speak at schools and stuff about that. And everyone seems to have a very rosy idea of what it is like to own a business and run a business, and it is. I mean, I love it. I'm suited to it, but not everybody is, and and it is way harder than. I mean, I do longingly think about the days when I used to be able to clock out at 5 o'clock and not think about work. Those days are long gone. I think about work at 2 a.m. I think about work on weekends, holidays. There is no escaping it.
Do you ever wake up and have to write something down in the middle of the night about work before it?
Some of my best ideas. In fact, so because everything that we do is custom, it's really like we have to build a prototype machine and sell it. Like if you go out and you buy a machine, think of a machine, a car, or some other machine that you might buy. What you're buying is the product of typically dozens, if not hundreds, of prototypes that were improved
thousands of man hours spent designing it.
And so the first ones were probably garbage, and then they went fixing them as they went along. And so we don't have that luxury. We have to design it once and build it, and it has to be awesome. So that happens, but sometimes we build it and it's like, oh crap, there's problems. And we've already built it, we've already invested the money, and we've built it. Now we have to figure out how to fix this issue. And those are the ones where I'll be awake at 2 a.m. thinking about it, and an idea will pop into my head, and I'll be like, oh, eureka, I can't wait to get to work tomorrow and see if we can make that idea work and fix the problem.
You know my dad, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Of course.
My dad has no sense of fashion at all. Although he does have one rule. His shirt, whatever it may be, t-shirt, polo shirt, button up, it has to have a pocket. And that's so he can put his note card and his pen in his pocket wherever he goes. And when he has those ideas, he pulls it out and writes it down and goes on his way. But he's famous for talking about stuff that he wrote down in the middle of the night. So
yeah.
But there's a comedian named Mitch Hedberg who actually has a joke about that, because jokes will come to you throughout the day as you're just doing your thing. And he says, I either have to immediately write it down or convince myself that it wasn't funny.
I believe it.
But I was on my way over here today eating lunch, and I was telling someone, hey, I'm going to go record a podcast with a guy that makes secret hidden doors. And his first response was, I don't think my house could fit a hidden door or hidden anything. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, well, it seems like most houses have a little bit more negative space than people realize. What would your response be for someone who would like some type of hidden safe or room or something, but they don't think they have enough room in their home?
So first of all, keep in mind that the secret door actually creates space rather than taking it away. Like, we don't add square footage to buildings. We replace doors that look like doors with doors that look like other things. So if you had that square footage before, you still have it. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll convert a closet to a secret closet by taking off the door and replace it with a bookcase or a full-length mirror or something. Or sometimes someone will have a walk-in closet, like a master bedroom walk-in closet typically, and we'll subdivide that closet so there's a portion of it now that is secret.
Okay.
So these can fit in small houses, and in fact, sometimes they actually make space for you because in the case of a bookcase, for example, you had a flat panel door there, and now the door that's there actually stores stuff.
Right.
So you got even a little more space than you used to have.
That's awesome. That's something I didn't even think about. So, anybody who's listening to this podcast, say they're a young student in high school, or they're an early engineering student, or they're young and in construction, and they're hearing this podcast right now, and the gears are just turning. What advice would you give to a young person who would think about going into a field or this field? What classes would you want to take? What skills would you look for in hiring people?
Yeah. So first of all, this field is an extremely cottage industry, right? Mm-hmm. So the only reason that I was able to succeed is because there was literally no one in the field doing it, right? And now there is somebody in the field, and it's me. So your chances of getting into this field are a lot more difficult.
Well, my what I'm saying there is, suppose after this podcast airs, you get flooded with resumes. That's where I'm going.
Yeah, I got it.
What would you look for on a resume?
So I do get flooded with resumes, actually, because so many people are in love with the idea of secret doors, and that's their dream job. So the first thing there's so much that I could talk about with regards to hiring people.
Yeah, spill it.
Yeah, so one thing is that your resume is not nearly as important as your contacts, right? Like, if you know somebody that I know, that's an avenue to pursue that's way more likely to get you a job working for me than if you just send me a resume out of the blue. Another thing is, a lot of people that send me resumes are in other states, and I don't mind if you're from another state, but I don't know you, so I have to take a risk on you, but I feel really bad that you have to take a risk on me to transplant your whole life, come out here, and then maybe I find out that I don't like you, and then it doesn't work out, and I have to feel terrible that you have to move your whole life back again, right? So that is something that counts against you. But another thing that I think is also probably more important than the resume is you have to be smart. You know, there's no other way to really put it, but I've hired so many people over the years, and some of them have great resumes, but they just did not have the competence. I mean, if you don't think of yourself as a supremely competent person, then you're probably not going to work out here for us. And that doesn't mean, I'm not saying that you're dumb or whatever, but just, you have to be the type of person that can fix anything, build anything. You have to know that you can do anything you want to do. If that's you, then you might have a chance working here, because
so you have to be on the ball, 90 caliber.
Well, yeah, because people come to me and they're like, I'll do anything you want me to do. I'll sweep the floors. I'll be just your best employee. Great, but I don't need anybody to sweep the floors. I already know how to sweep the floors. What do you know how to do that I don't know how to do? I don't want us to hold your hand and tell you, okay, now pick up the hammer and hit the nail with it. No, I don't have time to tell you how to do that.
Yeah.
No, you have to already know how to do everything, and in fact, you have to know how to do stuff that I do not know how to do, or be able to learn how to do stuff that. That's how you. I mean, if you approach me and you say, "Hey, look, I've got skills. These are my skills that I can do. Like I have experience in this, and this, and it's stuff that I only wish I knew how to do." That's how you can get a job.
There you go. So you're looking for people who have powerful skills that aren't only marketable, that are necessary to what you do.
Yeah, well, certainly. I mean, that's what makes you attractive to me, is if I envy your skills.
Right on. What are some of those skills that, like, obviously you have to be able to be good with your hands. You're a builder. You know,
Yeah.
you have to be good with numbers. You're dealing with math and geometry and schematics and things like that. What would you say the most important thing is, as far as the one skill that you're like, if this person doesn't have it, I just can't do it.
So I think
other than strong intellect and computing power.
it's honestly it's competence, because what you have to do here is such a wide range of stuff. And of course, you know, we have need of different types of people for different positions. So, for example, I'm an engineer. If you were trying to be an engineer for this company and actually design the secret doors, which is what I think most people want to do that call me, then certainly you have to have a CAD modeling experience, which we use SolidWorks here. So it would be a requisite that you be a Jedi Knight at using SolidWorks. And then at the same time, you would have to already have a lot of knowledge about manufacturing processes. It would be a big plus if you were skilled at woodwork, and just generally, if you could convince me that you can learn how to do anything on your own without supervision in a short period of time, and you can make really smart decisions. Because the secret doors that we make, as previously mentioned, some of them cost a lot of money. Like I always go out and tell people in the shop, like, hey, be careful with that. That's a new car you're lifting up, you know, like, and we have to work on these products that cost as much as a new car and handle them but not screw them up, you know, like that the old adage, measure twice, cut once.
Oh yeah.
Like I tell every new hire, you're going to have an opportunity every single day to make a 1 second mistake that cost me $10,000. So don't make any of those mistakes.
That's pressure.
Yeah, it is. It is pressure, and it's pressure that's on me more than anybody.
Right.
And so, like, people make mistakes here every once in a while, and some of them are very costly, and I can forgive most of them because, you know, nobody's perfect. But what I cannot forgive is carelessness. If somebody makes a careless mistake, I lose it, because that's preventable, you know, like, so yeah, that's a really long explanation of, you know, what you need to have. But I will say, sort of in summary, I've had employees. In fact, I recently had to let go of an employee recently who was one of the younger guy studying engineering, and I think a really great person and a good guy, but he has the stereotypical millennial mindset that he spent a ton of time on like Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and all that crap, and I had to tell him, like, on numerous times, even though it's his own time, he can do what he wants with his own time.
Yeah.
But I'm like, hey, you have an addiction to social media. You should erase all your profiles and take all the time that you used to spend doing social media and get on Khan Academy and learn skills.
Yeah.
Because if you get some skills, I mean, you're talking hours a day, you could come to me as a total hardcore engineer with mad skills and make a lot of money. Or you could even threaten me and say, hey, I'm getting recruited around by all these big hot companies that I want to work for because I've developed all these skills. But you can't do any of that. You don't know how to do squat. I have to babysit you and hold your hand all the time because all you ever do is, I don't know, whatever kids are doing these days, which is not awesome learning.
Xbox.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I imagine owning a business, especially in something like this where you are inventing the industry as you go. Um, I imagine finding new, young, good talent to fill the ranks can present a palette of challenges.
It is, yeah. I've been surprisingly disappointed by the people that I have interviewed with me, particularly engineers. It's hard for me to like reminisce back and think about what I knew and didn't know when I first graduated as an engineer, but I believe that I knew way more than most of the new engineers that I interviewed.
Are coming out today.
I'm just like, I give everybody a quiz during my hiring process,
Smart.
and I'm just stunned at how terribly most of them do.
How much do you think is just, how much of that do you think is the overall state of education in America today, and how much is just other variables?
Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to ask a social scientist for that.
That's actually a smart answer. I respect that.
Yeah, I don't really know the reasons for it per se. I think maybe if I had to guess, I would say that in the engineering discipline, it attracts a lot of people because it's a good, safe income. But not everybody is made to be an engineer. Right. Some of us, everybody knew we were going to be an engineer when we were
Like
6.
my cousin was like that.
Yeah, well, I knew that too. I mean, everybody from the time I could walk, everybody's like, "Oh, I can't wait to see what kind of engineer you become."
Yeah.
And so some people are not like that. They just decide that they're going to go into engineering, like because it makes more money than art history, and you might not be a good engineer if that's your reason for doing it.
No, I hear you there. Like I just mentioned, my cousin's an engineer, and I hear there's a Hug and Engineer Day, and the meme that gets passed around says the engineer will hate it, but do it anyway.
That's funny. I haven't even seen
And the
that.
picture is this guy with his lunchbox. He's just like, his wife is hugging him, and he's like, just stiff as a board, like don't touch me.
Yeah.
But it's pretty funny. So this year you mentioned that you're doing more prefabricated doors, for lack of a better term, and so that makes them a lot more available to the general public. Before you started doing that, you mentioned they were all high end. So you don't have to tell me any details, but I mean, can one assume that a lot of your clients were the uber wealthy or aristocracy and things like that? I mean, who are some of the kinds of people that had been ordering doors from you before it was more available, readily available to the general public?
So a lot of people, when they hear what I do, they think that I'm selling to exclusively doomsday prepper types.
That's hilarious.
And that really is not the case. Not that they don't want it, but I think most doomsday prepper types have not been historically in the appropriate tax bracket to afford what we do. So most of my clients have been not eccentric at all, which even is surprising to me. Most of them have been like really down to earth, normal people. They have got a little bit of money. They're usually, there's a ton of doctors and lawyers and small business owners that, they're building a house that's maybe $1 to $5 million range, and it's their dream house, and they've always wanted to have a secret door, or else maybe they've got a collection, they've got a lot of guns, it's maybe their second house, so they're away from it for long periods, and so they want a safe place to put stuff or whatever. So a very diverse group of normal people that you would not have heard of. Amongst those, every year there's like maybe 8 or 10 celebrities or people that you would have heard of. Certainly, if you read the Forbes list of wealthiest people every year, you read a lot of the names of my client list.
Very cool.
I've even got to work on a project for the Royal Palace of one of the Middle Eastern kings.
Awesome.
And a lot of, a ton of celebrities and movie types and pro athletes and stuff as well.
what's the coolest place you've ever visited
Well,
for work?
yeah, for work. So, let's see. I have not gone too far afield for work usually because it means I have to be away from my office.
Right.
And so that is like the opportunity cost is so big for me that I will usually find somebody local that will help us out with
Okay.
the install side of it so that I don't have to go. I have traveled all over the United States for work. The international trips I try to weasel my way out of. But there have been a few offers of people that were like, hey, I really want you to come to my country to do the install. I will pay for your airfare. I'll put you up in a hotel. It'll be all expenses paid. Just come and help me out with the installation. But then I have to come back and be like, okay, you want me to be away from my business for like a week and a half. And also, you're in like some weird country that does not have hardware stores, like what
Yeah.
if something goes wrong? This has happened to me in the past before too. Like we're going to do an installation, which is very stressful always. Like I love to travel, but not for work because if I'm working, I'm like a total stress case.
Yeah.
And something will go wrong, like a part will be defective or something, and we'll have to order a new one. Well, I've got a whole staff that's holed up in a hotel for 2 days while we UPS read some like $2 part across the world.
Wow.
And it ends up costing like 3 or 4 grand because
Wow.
this stupid little part wasn't there.
Yeah.
So in order to avoid that, and also it's a better deal for the consumer. For my client, I try to provide a good value to them, and I can do that better if they don't have to assume the risk that corresponds to what can happen if I'm in a foreign country when something
Right.
weird happens.
Very cool. So not too much time out there traveling.
Well,
just because it's going to cost you a lot to be away from the actual business.
I do a lot of international traveling personally, just
Right.
for myself, but not for work. But I do travel quite a bit domestically for work. And even domestically, I usually try to talk the clients out of it. Oftentimes they want me to come out because they want help with the installation because they think it's going to be tricky, and I explain to them what I already explained to you, which is it's not very tricky.
This.
Or we'll find somebody there that can do this. I'll work with them free, FaceTime or Skype or whatever. We'll get it installed. But sometimes the client's like, no, because I don't want my contractor to know that there's
I was going to ask you about that, yeah.
Or maybe it will be like that one that cost $190,000 and it was very complex and the install was not easy. It really did require us to come do the install. So I do have to travel for those, regrettably. So I do travel, not extensively, but
More often than you'd like.
probably once a month. I'm out in the field doing
Well, I'm glad I caught you. We put this podcast meeting together quick.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in any situations where you're just kind of like, wow, I'm here in this location working with this awesome door, like, pinch me, is this real?
Oh yeah, that happens actually all the time. In fact, it's funny. I tell this to all my customers because I'm open about it. I mean, if it comes up in conversation. When I started this, as I mentioned prior, there was nobody making secret doors, and so if you wanted a secret door, you had to come to me. And so I had only been in business for maybe like a year or 2 years before I started getting calls from like big people.
All right, can you drop any
I
names
cannot.
at all?
I
Okay,
cannot.
that's totally
I
fine.
wish I could, but yeah, it's definitely secret who my client list is.
Totally respectable.
But I was just blown away. Like, I'm at the house of this extremely famous person, and
Right.
I'm sitting in a room with all of these like rock star security consultants that are the best in the industry, and they've all got 50 years experience, and they were on the president's detail, and all these like
That's
this,
awesome.
the most famous, important, and then little old me.
Here's my door.
Yeah, and it's like I felt like such an imposter. Like, what am I doing here? I cannot. But then I had to remind myself that even back in that time, nobody had made more secret doors than me. Anywhere in the world, no one on the planet had made more secret doors than me.
That is awesome.
And so I thought, I guess I deserve to be here. And now, we've probably made 700 or 800 secret doors. And certainly now I feel like, thank goodness for you that you hired me, because you almost might have hired somebody else that would have screwed this up, and I am the only guy that can actually do this for you.
So there are a few other companies out there that are trying.
Well,
we're not trying to give them any props here.
Yeah, no. when I started, there was absolutely nobody. Like, I Googled secret door and nothing. The internet was mum on that subject. Now there have sprung up 2 or 3 companies that are trying to satisfy portions of the market,
and they certainly know who you are.
Yeah, they do. But they are, fortunately for me, they're not very engineering savvy. They're basically millwork shops that have started making, putting bookcases on gate hinges, and so they're not really competition for me, or for us, I should say, because I've got really smart people that work for me. But it is a little bit of a shame for some of the customers, because there really is a wide discrepancy in quality between a secret door that's professionally engineered and one that's built by maybe an exceptional woodworker, but not an engineer.
Right.
And what will happen is that the secret door will sag, or maybe it's the most beautiful woodwork in the world, but if it's not engineered, it will sag almost every time.
Or it won't look seamless.
Yeah, and the client will never know what they could have had if they would have just done a little more research, or come and visited our facility here. They could have seen oh wow, this is a night and day difference between what could have been provided by that local cabinet shop, or by one of the really low end sort of hack mom and pop shops that have sprung up.
Right on. Yeah, I definitely know that. Knowing you, since we were kids, you were one of those guys that would pay attention to detail just in anything in your life. Like, you seemed like you wanted things done right, you wanted things done correct, and you were smart enough to know when they weren't. So I imagine if someone's trying to get into this industry or build it from scratch, and they don't have a mind that works similar to Steve Humble's, they're probably going to spend a lot of time swimming in circles in the shallow end, when they could have just put their feet down and walked.
Yeah, well, it is a lot harder than what I ever anticipated, and like I said before, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot on the line, and one screw up could not just cost the particular project that you're working on, it could cost the whole business. If you just screw up one time and somebody gets their finger pinched in a secret door, it's like lights out, close the doors, you're done. Or worse, something.
Yeah.
Or maybe a burglar breaks in and sees a door that discovers the secret because the secret door wasn't very good.
Yeah.
I cannot risk that. So every secret door that I make has to be so good that you cannot tell that it's there, even if you're looking at it very closely. That's a very high standard, because the human eye is such a precise instrument, it's very easy to tell a secret door.
Something's not quite right.
Anytime that I see that people will tell me, "Oh, did you build a secret door or whatever?" No, I didn't, but where is it again? Because I'm going to go look at it. And I will go to wherever in the world it is, and I will examine that secret door and see what they did right and what they did wrong.
Gotcha.
And almost always they commit some egregious errors that make the secret doors so that it's not appropriate for a security application.
Gotcha. I would like to take a look at your showroom real quick if we could pause this, then come back and talk a little more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we do that, do you ever look around at what you've built and think about, wow, this is so cool, this is so awesome, I can't believe I've made it here, all the hard work has just been so worth it? Or do you still feel like you're not quite there, like you're still trying to build it?
That's a good question. Neither and both of those.
Yeah.
Certainly, every secret door I make continues to be better than the last.
That's
so
awesome.
I look at the secret doors that we made when we first started, and they just would not pass inspection now. And I look at the ones that we made like 5 years ago, and I kind of cringe because they're not as good as what they could be. And I look at the doors now that I make, and I'm like, I'm proud. Like, this secret door is
Very
so
cool.
awesome. But maybe next year I'll cringe when I think about the ones that we're still making, right? So I feel like, I do feel like we can't get much better, but everybody feels that way until they innovate. So I'm constantly improving, and I feel like I'm still on the road in that regard. But at the same time, there are a lot of like pinch me moments when I see like I get a ton of free publicity, and so I'm on TV quite a bit, various TV shows and stuff.
A couple weeks ago, I was at my parents' house, and you came on TV.
Oh, really?
They're like,
what show was it?
Some news channel.
Yeah.
And it was this is Secret Doors. And I go, oh, Mom, I wonder if that's Steve Humble. And she's, Steve Humble, we know? And I was like, yeah, and there you were.
Yeah. So it is kind of, there are a lot of those pinch me moments, I guess, when I look back at that and think, wow, when I started, I fully recognized that my chances of success were low. Like, everybody knows that 90% of all businesses fail in the first
Right.
5 years, right? So I am delighted and surprised that I've been able to, thrive and flourish and get to where we're at right now.
Just from our quick conversation over the last 45 minutes or so, it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you're obsessed with quality, engineering, and improvement. Is that fair to say?
You have to be. I feel like you absolutely have to. So first of all, going back to my prior work experience, I worked at a company when I was an intern where the products we made were deliberately designed for what's called planned obsolescence. So we made these products and we tried to make them as awesome as we could, and then what we called the godless bean counters upstairs would come back and say, no, it's going to last too long. You have to shave some cost out of it and make it so that... And that was demoralizing.
Develop a 5, 10, 15-year plan for the product.
That was demoralizing for me to work on a product that's not as good as I could make it. And when I started this business, I told you we started in the high end. And the reason I did that was because I didn't want to make a secret door that wasn't as good as I could possibly make it. And so that has been the driving force. And thank goodness, because I can look back at every product and know that I didn't cut a single corner. I made that thing awesome, as awesome as I could make it, and that's what makes it rewarding for me.
That is awesome. Steve, let's go check out your showroom if you can.
Yeah.
Steve, that showroom was amazing.
Well, thank you.
I have never seen anything. I used to be in the construction industry. I was a glazer, as I mentioned earlier, and now I'm going through in my mind all the snowbirds' houses I was in when they were out of town, wondering how many of them here in Arizona had secret rooms. We were talking a little bit about the difference between security doors back there, and you said some interesting stuff that I kind of wanted to ask you about. That door that you showed me with the pins that were vertical instead of horizontal. Could you explain a little bit more about that again?
Yeah, you bet. So a lot of people think that if they buy a safe or a vault door that it's just not going to be penetrable, you know? And that's really, nothing could be farther from the truth. It turns out that even the best vault doors are not that tough to break into. If you go on YouTube, you can just do a search for, guys breaking into vault doors or safes, and you'll see that most safes can be broken into in like 15 or 20 minutes using very basic tools that you can buy at any hardware store. So having a big safe or a big vault door is a little bit like having a neon sign above your most valuable possessions, saying, hey, don't waste your time anywhere else. This is where the good stuff is at. So we feel like it's such a good value to have some secrecy so that nobody can see where the secret door is, but also if you're going to be storing something that's really worth a lot of money, then it should definitely be there should be some forced entry protection as well. So being as we are engineers and we design all of our own stuff, we designed a system for vault doors that we try to use on all of the vault doors that we make that is much more difficult to break into than a traditional vault door. And the way that we do that is arranging the interlocking shear pins in a different configuration than almost all commercially available safes and vault doors.
You designed that?
Yes.
Do you own a patent for it?
No, I don't. I don't own a patent for it. I actually, I don't think I'm eligible for the patent because I originally got the idea from as I told you before, like anytime I see a door, like I'm interested in learning about it, who made it, how did it get made, whatever. And so I'm familiar with a lot of different designs for vault doors that have been used in the past. And this particular design, the only time I've ever seen it was it was used for like a nuclear storage facility.
Wow!
So the government has
made
vault doors using this sort of a configuration, but it's very, very rare to use. It requires a little bit more precision and some other things, but we decided we wanted to make doors that nobody could break into, even if they knew that the secret door was there. So we arranged these pins in a different way. It's a little bit difficult to explain without the benefit of a visual aid.
Let me give it a try real quick. So imagine you're looking at a door and you have the steel beam going down the center and the steel beam going across the side, making a cross. And in the center you have the disc that turns them and either locks them or unlocks them depending on how you turn the disc. With this, what they've done is those clips that these rods clip into, they've put inside the door so that the door actually closes into them and these clips slide into the door itself. And once these clips are in the door, the rods are inside the door and they slide up into those clips, but it's inside the door and not outside the door.
Jesse, don't take offense to this, but I don't think anybody is visualizing what.
I think you're vastly underestimating planet Earth here. And if I'm wrong, I'll buy you some.
Okay, let me try explaining it my way, see if it maybe makes more sense.
And then we'll have the listeners go to Twitter and vote.
No,
just joking.
So most safes or vault doors have locking pins that extend out the side of the door edge and also the top and the bottom. And those pins extend into holes or receptacles on the door's frame. And that's called cantilevered loading, and it's not particularly strong. Usually vault doors are kind of strong anyway because they have so many of them and they have really big ones. But that loading technique is sort of weak and just generally inferior. So what we do is called loading in double shear, where we have tabs around the door's frame and slots around the door, and when the door closes, the tabs go into the slots. And each one of the tabs has a hole in it, and inside the door's mechanism, the pins are fully protected and fully concealed. So you don't ever see any locking pins on the door. All you see are these slots. When the door closes, these pins extend in double shear. They're protected on all sides, and it's just way, way stronger. It's not capable of being pried or cut or anything.
Planet Earth, I am conceding in this Twitter race before I even send it out there. Steve did a much better job at explaining that than I did. And just the look on your face there was just like, you sit down before you hurt yourself.
Well,
Let
you
me
know,
explain
part
it.
of my job every day is talking with customers over the phone and explaining to them technical concepts. And so I have developed, I think, a little bit of an ear for what explanations are going to make people say, what the heck are you talking about?
Yeah, I think everybody right now is probably thinking it's a good thing Steve explained that after Jesse tried, because I would be completely confused. As we wrap this up, you mentioned you have a website.
I do, yes. So hiddenpassageway.com is our primary website. But as I mentioned earlier, we're making all these new doors that are more for like middle class kind of client. And we sell those on an e-commerce site that we set up just for those, which is called the Hidden Door Store. So if you go to hiddendoorstore.com, you can see those offerings, and you can even configure it online, and you can pay with a credit card and just order it, and it will just come to your house.
Excellent. Now, are you on social media?
Yeah, if you go on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, I'm sure you can find a page that somebody that works for me runs. But I think if you want most information, just go to the website. That's where you'll see a gallery of some of my favorite past projects, and you will see explanations about what makes our secret doors so good. And there's some pricing information, particularly on the hiddendoorstore.com. It's a little bit hard to have pricing information for custom projects because they're all priced sort of individually.
Right.
But if you think you're in the market, give me a call or shoot us an email, and we'll be happy to price you out a project. You can find out what your secret door is going to cost, see how feasible it is for you.
Very cool. Well, thank you for your time, Steve. I know you were a busy man with a lot going on, and you were gracious enough to let me come in here pretty quick. And I have thoroughly enjoyed my time here, and thank you very much. I'd love to have you on again in the future sometime.
Yeah, you bet. Well, thanks for coming. It's been fun.
Thank you, Steve.